When I was in theological college, we had some professors that would often come and eat with us in the cafeteria at lunchtime, and it was really enjoyable. We got to know them on a personal level, so to speak. And I remember one day, some fellow students and I were in the cafeteria having lunch with some of our professors, and it was right at this time of year, and one of the professors, Dr. Jonas, made a comment that he never liked to hear the story of the raising of Lazarus in this season, only a couple of weeks away from Easter. He said, you have Easter, you have Jesus rising, and just 2 weeks before you have this other person, Lazarus, rising, and he felt that this second story sort of muddied the waters of Easter. And then another one of the professors, Dr. Jones, he replied wisely, well, this story is not about who Lazarus is, it's about who Jesus is. Well, quite right, the story is about who Jesus is. Well, who is he then? Well, there's a correct answer to this question as well. You see, in the Gospel of John, chapter 11, as throughout the New Testament, we are meant to see that Jesus is the Messiah of Israel. That is the anointed or the chosen one of God, the one whom God has sent to lead and to redeem God's people. We are meant to see in this story that Jesus is the Messiah of Israel. But what does it really mean to say that Jesus is the Messiah? What does that really mean? Now, the word Messiah is a contested term. It meant different things to different people in the first century. And I think it's important for us to keep in mind that Jesus did not come to fit into somebody else's preconception of what the Messiah would or would not be. Rather, he came and demonstrated himself to be the Messiah, and therefore who and what he was defined Messiah. How then did those who believed in him as Messiah, those who were his followers, experience him? One of the things that always strikes me then about the Gospel of John chapter 11 is how those who followed Jesus, those who were around him, those who believed him to be Messiah, experienced him in a surprising way. They experienced him as their friend. A friend is someone who enjoys being around us, somebody who chooses to be around us. We see at the beginning of our story today that Jesus and the 12, that is the inner circle of his followers, had gone together to find some seclusion to the east side of the Jordan River, where it was less populated, and where in fact it was safer for Jesus, who had become a wanted man. And we find, as in other stories, Jesus having banter with his disciples. They are in part his co-workers, but in part his friends. They look out for one another. And just a few chapters later in John's Gospel, Jesus says explicitly to the 12, "You are my friends." And we see Jesus acting as friend toward them here. There are some other characters in this story. Their names are Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. They are siblings. They live together in the town of Bethany near Jerusalem. And throughout the gospel narratives, we find that they are really best friends of Jesus. They love one another as much as it is possible for friends to love. And we see Jesus not only wanting to spend time among his friends, but choosing to do so, and being around them in a friendly way. Just before Christmas, a few months ago, I got a package in the mail from my friend Clifton, who lives in North Carolina. He sent me a little Christmas card with a picture of his family, and he sent me a T-shirt from the university that we attended together. Clifton and I are going to be lifelong friends. We haven't seen each other in about 7.5 years. And our friendship is not based on the absence of the last 7.5 years, but on all the time that we spent together as students. Studying together, taking study breaks to play a game of pool, hanging out with all our friends. And on the basis of those years together, we will be friends for life. Friends are those whom we want to be around and whom we choose to be around whenever we can. Even if there is a great span of distance or between us, or even if we are not able to see our friends on a regular basis because they live far away or we're busy with different parts of our lives, they remain our friends because we want to spend time with them. The Christian faith teaches that Jesus is our friend as well on this very basis. That Jesus wants to be with us and chooses to be with us. Now, how can this be, you might ask? He lived 2,000 years ago in a different part of the world. Well, the Christian faith teaches that God is present with us through the Holy Spirit, or the Spirit of God. And also that this same Spirit is also the Spirit of Jesus. And so therefore, through the Spirit of God, Jesus longs to be with us, and in fact, is with us whenever we call. What else might we say about friends? Friends are those who look out for our best interests, aren't they? Friends want what is best for us. And we find in the Gospel of John chapter 11, Jesus wanting what is best for his friends in all different sorts of ways. When they are in danger from the authorities, Jesus takes the disciples to a secluded place on the other side of the Jordan River where they might be safe and find rest. When he finds out that his dear friend Lazarus is ill and that his sisters, Mary and Martha, are terribly worried, Jesus goes to them. But Jesus goes when he knows the time is right. Even though his friends might have been surprised by the ways that he looked out for their best interests, he nonetheless was looking out for them indeed. And he went to them and was with them at just the right time. Some of you must have been watching in recent weeks, like I did, the final season of Downton Abbey. If you have not seen the program, it's set in Yorkshire in England about 100 years ago. And it tells the story of the Crawley family, a noble family who live in a great country manor, and also their many servants. And there are the two parallel stories of of the wealthy family who live in the house and the many folk who work for them. And one of the most beautiful parts of the story is how Lord Grantham, the head of the family, developed a wonderful friendship with his butler Carson over the course of their 50 years together. And in the very last episode of the series, Carson began to take a little ill, and he had come to the point where he needed to retire. He was no longer able to carry on the rigorous duties as the butler in such a large household. And there was a wonderful moment between the two men when they were not employer and employee or master and servant, but two friends who recognized with joy the great friendship they had developed. And Lord Grantham said to Carson, "Well, that's it. You'll retire, but you will receive a pension from the estate." Friends are those who look out for our best interests, who want what is best for us. Jesus, through the Spirit of God, is our friend in this sense as well. Jesus wants what is best for us. Through his leading and his teaching and his guidance and his example, he has shown the way for us, which is in our best interests. What is best for us? Because he is our friend. What else might we say about friends? I think that friends are compassionate. That is to say, friends are those who are willing to suffer alongside us. There is such a beautiful moment in the Gospel of John, chapter 11, where Jesus finally arrives in the village of Bethany and is taken to the tomb where his dear friend Lazarus has been laid. And we are told that he wept. Jesus did not run in the other direction from the suffering of his friends. He went to share it. Perhaps we have had the experience of going through some difficult time in our lives and finding that maybe someone that we thought was a friend was really not the friend we thought they were. In our time of difficulty, they have been nowhere. They've run in another direction. They were not willing to experience the discomfort that came from our pain. By the same token, perhaps we have been in such a difficult situation, have found that somebody stuck with us through thick or thin. And we learned through that difficulty that this person was really a true friend. I'm sure you know the story of Helen Keller. She was born in Alabama and at a very young age had a serious illness which left her both blind and deaf. I don't think any of us can imagine the difficulty of a life experienced in that way. Well, perhaps you know also the story of her friend and tutor and companion, Anne Sullivan, who lived alongside her and taught her to live a remarkable life, where Helen Keller became a brilliant speaker and writer, and lived a wonderful and a full life. And Helen Keller was uniquely positioned, I think, to say this, that it is better to walk with a friend in the dark than to walk alone in the light. A friend is someone who is willing to share in our suffering. Jesus, through the Spirit of God, is just such a friend for us. When we go through times of difficulty and pain, as we all do, He does not run in the other direction, but is with us. And if we are weeping, weeps alongside. Now, I think that there is another most special way in which this story shows Jesus to be a friend. And that is, to his friends, he showed the glory of God. We find that the controlling theme of Jesus' actions in this episode, that is, where he went and what he did and precisely when, was all orchestrated so that his friends might see through him the glory of God. We who are so blessed to have this story preserved for our reading and our hearing and our telling can see through this the glory of God as well. May we be so wise and fortunate to have other friends in our lives who are able to show us something of the goodness and the love of God. The Gospel of John chapter 11 wants to tell us that Jesus is the Messiah of Israel. And in fact, that those who were his followers, those who recognized him to be the Messiah, experienced him in rather an unexpected way. They experienced him as friend. He was friend of the 12. He was a friend of Mary, Martha, and Lazarus as well. No wonder generations before us have loved to sing, "What a friend we have in Jesus." Praise be to God, he is our friend as well. Amen.